My husband bought me an expensive bracelet for our anniversary. When I went back to have it resized, the saleswoman said, he bought 2 of these last week. There's a reason I needed 2 identical bracelets, and you're going to hate me when you hear it, Liv. 6 hours earlier, I didn't know that sentence was coming. I'm Olivia Kessler, married to Nolan 26 years. He is not, historically, a man with a gift for gifts. A slow cooker for our 15th anniversary. A winter coat 2 sizes too large the year after that. A vacuum he swore, with total sincerity, was top of the line, and which broke inside of 4 months. I learned to laugh about it a long time ago. It became a kind of shorthand between us. Don't let Nolan pick the present. The sort of joke that only works in a marriage that's mostly, quietly, still working. We had a daughter once, Emily. She died 10 years ago, 3 weeks after her 24th birthday. Her photo sits in the hallway between the coat closet and the stairs. The one from her college graduation, cap crooked, grinning like nothing in the world could touch her yet. Nolan turned it face down one winter, 4 years back, and never turned it back over. I noticed. I said nothing. There are things you learn not to ask a person you love, because asking makes you responsible for the answer. We never say her name out loud anymore, not because we agreed to stop. It just happened, the way silence happens in a house. One quiet day at a time until you look up and it's been years. Lately, Nolan had been somewhere else. Longer walks after dinner, 20 minutes stretching into 50. Phone calls on the back porch with the door pulled shut, his voice too low to carry through the glass. Once, coming downstairs for water at midnight, I found him standing in the hallway staring at that turned-down frame, a mug of coffee gone cold and forgotten in his fist, like he didn't remember picking it up. You okay? Just tired, Liv. I let it go. I always let it go. 26 years teaches you which doors in your spouse open easily and which ones you learn to walk past. That morning, our anniversary, a Tuesday, unremarkable except for the date on the calendar, he came into the kitchen holding a small velvet box. Happy anniversary, darling. I laughed before I even opened it. What is this? Did you wrap a kitchen timer? Open it. Inside, nestled in white satin, was a bracelet. White gold, a row of small diamonds that caught the morning light through the kitchen window, like they'd been waiting all year for exactly that angle of sun. Nolan, this must have cost a fortune. You deserve something nice for once. For once? You bought me a vacuum, sweetheart. He laughed. Really laughed. For just a second, the old laugh. The one from before Emily. The one I hadn't heard in so long, I'd almost stopped being able to picture his face making that particular shape. Then it faded, the way it always did lately, like a light on a timer switch. I wore the bracelet all night. It sat a little loose on my wrist, sliding down over my knuckles whenever I reached for something, and I told myself I'd get it sized eventually. The next morning, still in my robe, I found the receipt folded in his sock drawer while I was looking for a spare phone charger, Callahan & Voss fine jewelry, $4,150, and decided, on a whim that felt entirely innocent at the time, to drive over and have the resizing done myself as a surprise for him. The bell chimed above the door when I walked in. The saleswoman, mid-50s, reading glasses on a beaded chain, a name tag that said Dorothy, recognized the bracelet before I'd even set it fully on the glass counter. Oh, this one. I remember your husband. He bought 2 of these last week. Spent forever choosing between 2 identical ones. I almost suggested he just get both, which, well, she laughed, not noticing yet that I'd gone very still. I suppose he did. My heart seemed to miss a full beat. 2 identical ones? Yes, ma'am. Same setting, same carat weight, one right after the other. Did he say who the second one was for? No, ma'am. He didn't mention. I couldn't feel my fingers. I told Dorothy I'd changed my mind about the resizing, that I needed to think about it, and I don't remember walking back to the car so much as finding myself already inside it, hands on the wheel, engine off, sitting in the parking lot for what turned out to be 15 minutes by the dashboard clock. On the drive home, everything I'd spent a year ignoring lined up in a row, evenly spaced, like something I'd built without meaning to. Perfume on his coat collar last winter, not mine, something floral and unfamiliar, gone by the time I thought to mention it. Phone calls taken outside, door shut behind him, his shoulders angled away from the window. The photo of Emily, turned face down, never turned back. The way, somewhere along the last 4 years, he'd stopped being able to say our daughter's name out loud, and somehow, I still don't fully understand the mechanics of it, I'd stopped wanting to say it either, as if his silence were contagious. I took the long way home. I don't know why. I just needed the extra 10 minutes. I set the velvet box in the middle of the kitchen table, square in the center, like evidence laid out for a jury of one. Then I sat down across from the empty chair and waited. He walked in just after 5. One look at my face, and he knew. Olivia. All good? I went to the jewelry store to get the bracelet resized. I pushed the box an inch toward him. Dorothy remembered you. 2 identical ones, Nolan. His shoulders dropped a full inch, like something had finally been set down after being carried too long. He didn't ask which store. He didn't ask how I'd found out. That told me more than anything he could have said out loud. Olivia, please, let me explain. Who got the second bracelet, Nolan? He lowered himself into the chair across from me. The way a person steps into water they already know is too cold. 26 years, I said. And right now I don't even know what I'm looking at. One question, no detours. Sit down and answer me. He didn't move. He was already sitting, hands flat on the table between us, and I watched them start to shake. Watched him watch them shake too, like they belonged to someone else. Who got the second bracelet, Nolan? Silence. 10 seconds. 15. The refrigerator hummed behind him. The only thing in that kitchen station still doing its ordinary job. Say her name, I told him. Whoever she is, say it. He looked up at me then, and his voice came out barely above a whisper. There's a reason I needed 2 identical bracelets, and you're going to hate me when you hear it, Liv. I'm listening. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's not what you think, he said. I need you to hold on to that while I tell you the rest, because I know exactly what it looks like, and I let it look that way for months because I was a coward, and I'm sorry, and none of that is the same thing as what you're picturing right now. I said nothing. I'd learned over the last 15 minutes that silence was the only tool I had left that still worked. 4 months ago, he said, I got a call from a woman named Denise Calhoun. Loop 1. Denise Calhoun, it turned out, had been Emily's sponsor during her second stint in rehab 11 years ago. A certified peer recovery coach who'd sat with Emily through 2 relapses and one very bad Christmas Eve in a detox unit outside Hartford. I'd met her exactly once, briefly, at a family session I barely remembered attending. Nolan told me Denise had tracked him down through an old rehab alumni network, and that the first phone call, the one that started the back porch calls, the door shut behind him, had lasted 90 minutes and ended with him sitting alone in the dark on the porch steps for another hour after he hung up. I told myself, hearing this much, that it was still just grief. A friend of Emily's, resurfacing, nothing more. I wanted that to be the whole story so badly my stomach hadn't fully dropped yet. Loop 2. Denise told him, that first call, that Emily had given birth to a daughter 19 months before she died. A baby Emily had placed for a closed private adoption through an attorney without ever telling us, because she was in the worst stretch of her addiction and terrified that if we found out, we'd try to take the baby ourselves, try to fix it the way we'd tried and failed to fix everything else, and it would tear the family apart before the child even had a chance. My hands went cold reading Nolan's face while he said this. I told myself absurdly that Denise must be lying, or confused, or talking about someone else's daughter. The evidence proving that denial wrong came less than a minute later, when Nolan slid his phone across the table and showed me a photo Denise had sent him. Emily, 22 years old, thin in a way that still hurts me to remember, holding a newborn in a hospital room I'd never seen, smiling at the camera like she was trying to memorize the moment before she had to give it back. Loop 3. Emily had left a letter with Denise, sealed, to be opened only if and when Denise judged the time was right. A decision Emily had trusted to her sponsor rather than to either of us, which was its own quiet wound I'm still working through. The letter asked that if her daughter was ever found, her father be told first, and told gently, because Emily had written, Nolan read me this part out loud, his voice breaking twice, that her mother had already survived losing one daughter, and shouldn't have to survive hoping for one only to lose her again if it didn't work out. I sat with that sentence for a long moment. My physical reaction wasn't shaking this time. It was a stillness that felt worse, like my whole body had simply stopped. Loop 4. Nolan didn't take Denise's word alone. He hired a licensed private investigator, a man named Roland Feist, with 12 years in the field, mostly adoption reunion and heir location work, to verify the adoption records through proper channels before he let himself believe any of it. Chain of custody on the original hospital paperwork, confirmation through the adoption attorney's office, a records match that took 6 weeks to come back clean. I asked him, my voice not quite mine, why he hadn't told me the moment Denise called. Because I didn't know yet if it was real, he said. And because if it wasn't, I couldn't do that to you. I couldn't hand you that hope and then take it back. I understood the logic. I hated it anyway, in the moment. The way you can understand a decision completely and still feel flattened by it. Loop 5. Once the records confirmed it, Nolan met twice with a grief and family therapist, Dr. Elena Voss, specifically to figure out how, or whether, to tell me, and to prepare himself for meeting a 10-year-old girl who had spent her whole life with a different last name and no idea her birth mother had died. He also retained an attorney, Renata Kim Eskimmer, who specializes in adult adoption reunions and post-adoption contact agreements to make sure any approach to the adoptive family was handled correctly and legally, with nothing that could be construed as pressure or overreach. The adoptive parents, Karen and Tom Ostrowski, from a town 90 minutes north of us, had been cautious at first, understandably, and it was Karen's hug goodbye after their second meeting, in a parking lot outside a diner, that had left that unfamiliar floral perfume on his coat collar the winter I'd noticed it and said nothing. By the time he finished, it was fully dark outside the kitchen window, and neither of us had turned on the overhead light. Her name is Sadie, Nolan said. She's 10. She likes horses and hates cilantro, and she has Emily's exact laugh, Liv. The first time I heard her laugh over video call with Karen sitting next to her, I had to leave the room. I put both hands flat on the table to keep them from doing anything else. You've seen her, on a call, and you didn't tell me. I was going to tell you tonight regardless of the bracelet, he said. I swear that to you. Renata and Dr. Voss both told me I was running out of time to keep it from you gently, instead of you finding out some other way, and I did it the other way anyway, because I'm a coward, and because some part of me was so afraid of watching your face if it fell apart that I kept finding reasons to wait one more week. Why 2 bracelets? One for you, his voice cracked, and one for her. Karen and Tom agreed last week to a first supervised meeting this Saturday at a park near their house, Dr. Voss's recommendation, short and low pressure. I wanted you both to have something matching, something that said you belong to this family without either of you having to find the words for it in the moment, because I know neither of us is going to have the words in the moment. not. I want to tell you I forgave him instantly, cleanly, the way it might play out in a story built for an ending. That isn't what happened. What happened was a version of the crisis peak nobody warns you about. Not danger, not violence, just an impossible, narrow window of time and a decision I couldn't take back once I made it. Saturday was 4 days away. Karen Ostrowski had made clear, gently but firmly through Renata, that the meeting could still be postponed or canceled if either side needed more time, but that Sadie had already been told a version of the truth appropriate for a 10-year-old, that she had family who wanted to meet her, and that canceling now after that conversation risked confusing and hurting a child who had done nothing wrong in any of this. I had 4 days to decide whether I could walk into a park and meet my granddaughter while still furious at my husband for hiding her existence from me for 4 months. 4 days to decide whether fury and love could occupy the same body at the same time without one crowding the other out entirely. I called Dr. Voss myself on Wednesday, my hands not quite steady on the phone. She didn't tell me what to feel. She asked me one question I turned over for the rest of that week. Is the anger you're carrying about Nolan's silence, or about all the years of silence that came before it? The ones about Emily, that both of you built together? I didn't have an answer on Wednesday. I still don't have a clean one now. I called Renata Kim on Thursday, ostensibly about the legal shape of a first contact, whether anything needed to be signed, whether I had any standing at all as a grandmother who'd been unaware of her own grandchild's existence for a decade. She was patient with a question that must have sounded, to a family attorney, almost beside the point. Legally, she said, very little needs to happen this weekend. Emotionally, that's between the 4 adults involved, and I'd gently suggest that's the part actually worth your energy this week. By Friday night, I still hadn't told Nolan whether I was coming. Saturday morning, I put on the bracelet. Not the resized one. I never did get it resized, and it still slides loose over my knuckles to this day, and I've decided I like it that way. A small private reminder to keep my hands open instead of clenched. Nolan drove. Neither of us spoke much on the way, but somewhere past the county line, he reached over and set his hand palm up on the console between us. Not grabbing, just offering, and I put my hand in his because some things don't need 4 days of thinking through after all. Sadie was already at the park when we arrived, sitting on a bench beside Karen, swinging her feet, a horse-print backpack beside her. She had Emily's chin, Emily's slightly crooked front tooth, and when Karen introduced us and Sadie looked up, uncertain, polite in the specific over-careful way children are with strangers who matter more than they've been told, she laughed at something Tom said under his breath. And it was Emily's laugh, exactly, unmistakably, the sound I hadn't heard in 10 years landing in a stranger's body like it had been saved somewhere this whole time, waiting. I didn't cry in front of her. I'd promised myself that much on the drive over. I knelt down instead, at her eye level, and asked if she wanted to see something, and opened the second velvet box. It matches your grandma's, Nolan told her gently, the word grandma landing soft and enormous in the air between all of us. If you want it. Sadie looked at Karen first, asking permission the way kids do when they're not sure yet what's allowed to be true, and Karen nodded, and Sadie held out her wrist. It's been 4 months now. Sadie visits every 3rd weekend. An arrangement Renata helped formalize into something calm and unhurried, built entirely around what Karen and Tom feel is right for their daughter. No pressure, no timeline but hers. She calls me Liv, for now, at Karen's gentle suggestion, and I've decided that's more than enough. She wears the bracelet on Sundays, she told me, because that's the day she does family stuff, and something about the matter-of-fact way she said it undid me more than anything else has since that afternoon in the park. Nolan and I still see Dr. Voss together now, most weeks. We talk about Emily out loud these days. Her name, unremarkable in a sentence, no longer a door we have to walk carefully around. Last month, without either of us discussing it, I noticed the photo in the hallway was right side up again. Neither of us has mentioned who turned it back. I asked Nolan once, months later, whether he regretted keeping it from me those first 4 months. Every day, he said, and I'd probably do it again, and I hate that about myself. I just couldn't stand the thought of handing you a hope I wasn't sure yet was real. I didn't tell him it was all forgiven. Some things you don't say out loud. You just let them sit differently in the room over time, the way silence used to sit in that hallway, except this time it's the good kind. The kind that means nobody has to carry it alone anymore. 26 years, and I finally understand the 2 bracelets weren't a secret he was keeping from me. They were the first honest thing he'd given me in a decade.